Everyone knows Kayomarsh, so he doesn't need an introduction. Kayomarsh, would you like to start, please? Tame jara unmute karjo. Can you unmute yourself, Kayomarsh? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Today, we will, let me get the slides up. Can I share my screen?
Yes, please, go ahead. I've made you the co-host. So we can see the slide, Kayomarsh?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to do the projection. Okay. Very good. So today, I heard some comments about somebody wanting to come back and live in the Dadar Parsi colony. I don't think that would be possible, because we are going to talk about the theory that is well scripted in our scriptures and doesn't support any kind of reincarnation. So with that, let us start on the concepts of what our scriptures tell us from the time we have death and then going forward. Having a little bit of technical difficulty. Let me get out and come back again. Okay. Okay, so we've been talking about this, that is there life after that? Sure, there is life after that, but our scriptures tell us that the life that we are talking about is a spiritual life. And the belief in spiritual life, future spiritual life, stands out very prominent in the Avesta and the Pahlavi scriptures. The Gathas allude to it, and the later texts then build on it. Prophet Ashok Zarathustra was the first to propound the doctrine of immortality of the soul, or one. And our scriptures tell us that with the help of all our individual efforts, eventually all evil will be totally abolished, and then good will prevail forever. All souls, good and bad, will be given their respective bodies and will be reunited with their family, which is termed as ristakej, or resurrection. There is also an expectation that the world will be restored to perfection and immortality, and that concept is referred to as frashokariti, making fresh. So such is the great message of hope that Ashok Zarathustra has delivered to us. Next, let's examine what is the purpose of our life. According to our scriptures, we have a twofold purpose. One is to attain our individual salvation, which is referred to by obtaining Kordad and Amardad, and thereby perfecting our own soul. But then we have an extra responsibility of also attaining or contributing towards attaining a collective salvation of all souls by working towards wiping out all the evil and bringing about the world restored to perfection. And for this, the Gathas have given us a formula of success. And the simple way to remember the formula is that we remember the immortal concepts of Ormas, Baman, Ardibesh, Sarevar, and Spendarman. And if we integrate those sequences into our life, then the resulting consequences, the Gathas tell us, would guide us into Kordad and Amardat. So now let's start looking at what we call death. So what we call death is not death at all. Our soul, Urvan, comes to this world, the physical world, which is Geti, from the spiritual world, Vinoi. When we are born, we have a body just like a coat that's used to shelter or protect the soul. We live this earthly life in this body, and when this body is worn out, just like a worn out coat, we discard it or donate it or whatever we do. The body is then removed and discarded, but we still remain the same person without the coat. So when the body supposedly, quote unquote, dies, we continue to live on. And in our blatant ignorance of these conditions of life beyond, we call this change death. Naturally, we feel the loss of a dear one who has passed away. And in ignorance, we bring about gloom and doom. We forget that we, our soul, we were born into this world with this divine plan to grow and evolve anyhow. It's just that the soul has now moved on to a spiritual state. So the death that we fear and dread is not the end of our existence at all. And we need to get this in our head. It's hard, but we need to convince ourselves. It's a necessary change. It's a transition from one form of life to another form, one condition to another condition. And it is part of the nature's plan anyhow. The real us pass onward into the spiritual world, Binoi, to continue our journey to perfection. So, bottom line, we pass away, we do not die. So what happens after death? We're told that the separation of the soul from the body is a momentous event. Gathas do not give a detailed, clear picture of the fate of the soul immediately after death. According to the later Avesta writings, in the Hadoknask, the soul of the body sits near the head of the body for 3 nights. The soul of the righteous sings the Ushta Vaiti Gatha. Ushta Ammai, Yamai, Ushta Kamai Chit. And the soul of the wicked is in anguish, confusion, and cries, Kamna Moi Zam, Kutra Namoi Ayani. To what land shall I flee? Where do I go? Etc. The Avestan texts do not state what other experiences befall the soul. The Pahlavi scriptures, Dinkard, Minokerad, Ardavirafname, they elaborate that the demon Visaresha makes a fruitless attempt to capture the soul. And this is why we have fire burning for 3 days, and we invoke Saroshyasad to ask for protection. Dadestani Dini states that the soul, through its perception, is aware of what's happening. The righteous soul experiences happiness, that it's headed for the eternal bliss, whereas the wicked soul vividly sees all the sins and crimes and all the things that it has done in this life, and it dreads the individual judgment and the consequences that are awaiting it. It suffers great pain and discomfort. So contrary to the spirit of Avesta, the Pahlavi writers picture the soul as helpless as a newborn baby. There is some reference that the soul grows over the 3 days. I think we'll come to that later. Our religion prescribes elaborate prayers and rituals to ask for Saroshyasat's protection during this transition. And that's why we have the 3-day intense prayers. The later texts speak about the advantages of the ceremonies of even the living soul, Zinda Rawan. Persian riwayat of Shapur Baruchi states that on the first day after death, the soul is like an infant. Then it grows. On the second day, it grows to the size of a 7-year-old child. And on the third day, it becomes an adult of about age 50. Of course, these are all allegorical and references. The soul of the wicked is sorry and repenting as it approaches the judgment on the dawn of the 4th day. So there is a concept called Dhyana in our religion. And Dhyana has several meanings, 3 at least. Religion, it also means vision, and it refers to conscience also. The Gathas stress that a man's Dhyana, the conscience, plays an important part in determining the future destiny, to lead the soul either to bliss or to suffering. The Avesta and the Pahlavi scriptures expand on the Gathic concept and state that the soul is greeted by the Dhyana, which is personified as a beautiful maiden or an ugly hag as it approaches the Chinvat Bridge for its judgment on the dawn of the 4th day. The maiden appears amidst the wind, fragrant with scents for the good souls and perfumes, whereas the hag arrives amidst the chill of a foul blast of stench. So now the soul arrives at the Chinvat Bridge. Chinvato Pareto, the bridge of judgment. It's the bridge of discrimination, of choice between good and evil. And the concept is mentioned 3 times in the Gathas. In 46:10, then again in 46:11, and in 51:13. Zarathustra speaks in a figurative language about the Chinvat Bridge that connects this physical world with the unseen spiritual world and serves as a means to cross the deep chasm, which is the separation between the 2 worlds, the Geti and the Minoi. The Chinvat Bridge also reminds us of the Sirat in the Arab literature, the Wogo in the Chinese religion, and the Geol and Bifrost of the Scandinavian theories. So there are similar concepts elsewhere. Now, literally, chi, C-H-I, chi, means to pick up, to collect. So this bridge is a place where the man's soul, man or woman's soul, has to present a collective account of all the actions that we've done in our past, and then pick up our results. We gather from our scriptures that the reckoning of the souls takes place and the judgment is passed upon them before they cross the Chinvat Bridge. The doctrine of individual judgment is one of the cardinal teachings of Prophet Zarathustra. Prophet Ashur Zarathustra has traced a bold and firm outline in the Gathas, like a master artist. And he left the canvas to be filled in by other lesser painters later on that followed him. And like I said, the concept of bridge, Chinvat Bridge in the Gathas is highly symbolical and psychological. There is no such physical bridge. Its very name indicates that it's a bridge of discrimination and judgment. It's bridge between the two opposites, between the mind and the heart. It's not a bridge we are going to encounter after death. Perhaps, maybe this very world where we live is the bridge of judgment going on between earth and heaven, where we have to make discriminative selection of our future condition. And we ought to be aware of it. So then we come to the concept of individual judgment. The soul stands for individual judgment in presence of judges. The good and the evil deeds are weighed in a balance. A final decision is made with perfect justice. Next comes the crossing of the bridge over which the righteous and the wicked must pass. The righteous to heaven, the evil to hell. This doctrine of individual judgment at the bridge is consistent throughout the scriptures, from the Gathas to the latest writings. Important to note that there is no room for repentance. The sequences of how we have lived our life will determine the consequences that the soul will experience. God doesn't punish us. It is us who determine what we deserve and what we get. Gathas do not give the time of this judgment, whether it's immediately after death or on the dawn of the fourth day or whatsoever. Also, the Gathas state that Ahura Mazda is the judge in Yasna 46.7 and the separator. However, in the later texts, a trinity of judges is mentioned, comprising of Mitra, Rashnu, and Sarosh, led by Mitra Mehrdao, which are all aspects of Ahura Mazda anyhow. Later texts describe the bridge and the process of judgment with a lot fuller details. For example, they say that the bridge will become wider and easier to cross for the righteous soul, or it will become narrow as a razor's blade for those who are evil, and then the evil soul will fall off the bridge into hell. And we mentioned about dhyana. The dhyana of the righteous soul helps the soul cross the bridge. The dhyana of the wicked soul turns into an animal and chases the wicked soul to fall off the bridge, etc., etc. So now let's switch to what is heaven and hell. Heaven in our scriptures is referred to as Vahishtem Ahum in the Avesta. It literally means it's the best spiritual state. Vahishta is the superlative form of way, which means good. So this Vahishtem Ahum went on to become the Persian Behest. Heaven and hell, as conceived by Asho Zarathustra, are not physical places, but they are states of mind or conditions that our soul will experience, either of truth or of falsehood, of bliss or of woe, of light or of darkness, of self-consciousness or absence of self-consciousness. So important to note that we should not be talking about the soul going to heaven or hell. The soul does not physically go to heaven or go to hell. It's the condition of heaven or hell that will come to the soul. And then the soul will experience the resulting bliss or the woe. In Yasna 28.2, we are told that heaven is Garo Demana, synonymous with kingdom of light, into which Ahura Mazda leads his devotees through his divine law. Zarathustra has assured the faithful that they would enter into the state of this heavenly light through pure minds, Bhovana, and righteous deeds, as quoted in Yasna 51.15. The soul of the righteous, the Ashavan, the one who practices Asha, will experience and enjoy the highest blessing, which is the purity of everlasting bliss of Vahumano, the good mind. Now we come to the condition of hell. Hell is called Achista Ahum, the worst state synonymous with realms of darkness and misery. In Yasna 31.20, it's quoted, "But for you, O followers of untruth, a long period of spiritual darkness, a murky glow, and woeful wailings will exist." And in 46.11, and again in 49.11, it refers and tells us that the wicked who are willfully deaf and willfully blind will be tormented by their own conscience when they come near the bridge of judgment. And for a long time, they will experience the Drujo Demana. So hell is referred to as Drujo Demana, the abode of gloom, darkness, and stench. We are further told in the Gathas, Yasna 51.13, 14, that the soul of the wicked liar will tremble at the bridge of judgment because his own evil deeds and his evil tongue destroyed the path of truth for himself. The wicked, through their own deeds and doctrines, will be dragged into the abode of untruth, of their own doing. The Gathas speak of mental spiritual darkness, of unsavory spiritual food, and of pangs of conscience. But the subsequent ages were unable to comprehend the sublimely spiritual and ethical nature, and they have depicted all these as grossly material, gruesome hell. For example, Ardaviraf Name contains an account of Viraf's journey through the heavenly regions. And it has a horrid picture of hell with minute details of punishments which Viraf witnesses in his vision of hell. Incidentally, this account corresponds to the ascension of Prophet Isaiah. Its description of hell and some of the punishments bear a striking resemblance even to that of descriptions in the Inferno by Dante. Hell is filled with demons who torment the souls with worldly punishments in the life hereafter. It's made quite clear in the Gathas that the wicked realize the consequences of their evil thoughts, words, and deeds. 44.9 poses, what shall be his punishment for such conduct here and now? I'm aware of that which shall come to him in the end. So all these references kind of give you an idea of how our scriptures have laid out the concepts of heaven, the conditions of heaven and hell. The figurative expressions and the poetic metaphors of Gathas are taken literally in the later writings, and they are concretized, the concept of physical torture in hell, and have systematically worked them out. However, we're told that hell is not eternal, and all souls, good or bad, are promised the renovation, frashokarity, at the end of time. So then a question arises, that what if somebody has done equal good and equal bad? What happens to those souls? Gathas does not clearly mention of an intermediary religion or a region between heaven and hell for those who are ones which have good deeds exactly balancing their evil deeds. Some scholars have seen it in Yasna 33.1 in a word, Eme Mayasaite. The younger Avesta mentions 4 times a place which it calls Miswana Gatu, translated as the place of mixing, but does not elaborate any further. The strict logic demands that there should be a place or a condition of purgatory, and therefore the Pahlavi literatures have called it a mistagan for the soul whose good and bad balance until the time of resurrection. So now we want to examine some esoteric interpretation of our 5 short gaze. I've been taught by Dasturji Minochar Homji that these 5 short days refer to the 5 stages of the Urvan as Urvan progresses towards perfection. So Urvan progresses through these 5 stages, and the 5 stages of the soul are in our Avesta prayers. And reciting these prayers in each day should remind us daily of this fact. And hence, there is an original injunction of praying 5 at least once in every day. It also is backed by science that anything that you affirm again and again finally sinks in to our memory and into our actual mind, and it stays embedded. These 5 stages, symbolize the grades by which we can rise through the service of others. And I want to draw a parallel that just like the Christian concept, 5 stages of baptism, transfiguration, crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension, the 5 gays represent the soul's 5 stages. The 5 stages are Ushahina, which is the most dormant stage, then Avani, Rapitvina, Ujjayi Irena, and finally the most enlightened state, Ivisrutima. When we see the gaze, the wordings, each one has 4 lines. The first, second, and the 4th line are the same, except for the first word in the first line, which is for the name of the gay. Avani Ashone Ashahe Ratve. The word Ratve means the stage of the soul. The second and the 4th line are the same. Yasnaicha, Vamaicha, Krishnotraicha, Prasasthiyecha. The 4-step process which we are given for upliftment of our soul: worship, meditation, obtaining higher knowledge, and then transmitting this knowledge to others. The 3rd line of each gay spells out the unique and the distinguishing characteristic of the particular stage in the evolution of the soul. So Ushahina is the dormant state. Soul is without consciousness. Berejaicha, Namanyaicha. The soul is aspiring and steady. Who am I? Where did I come from? Where I'm going from here? These questions do not occur at this stage. All I know is to sleep, eat, reproduce like an animal. The next stage, Avani, is the morning of existence. It's the stage of beginning of the life of strife and struggle. Savangahe Visyaicha. See how it describes the stage. Soul benefits from the experiences and then advances at its own pace. Next, Rapitvina is the middle stage, a life of spiritual equilibrium. At this stage, the soul begins to understand God's plan. Radhat Ashwe Zantumaicha. The soul has enough enlightenment, and therefore it can enable other souls to advancement. Then comes Uzerina, the second last stage. The soul is approaching divinity. It has finally got rid of all its animalities of selfishness, of passion, anger, etc. And it starts experiencing joy. Uzerina's characteristics are termed as Pradat Virai Dakyumaicha. The soul advances humanity in others and is of a loving nature. And the soul forgives who abuses him or her. Then we come to the last stage, IB Sutrema. IB Sutrema is the highest IB, the most enlightened, the most radiant, and the most happy state of eternal self. Soul now has no discord. It experiences perfect harmony. This is the stage for saints and prophets. Fradat Vispam Ujaite Zarthustra. Souls like Zarathustra have reached this stage. The soul finally advances all forms of life and experiences spiritual life that is worthwhile. So these are the 5 stages of our soul advancing gradually. Now we come to this concept of resurrection termed as aristakej. We are told that exactly 57 years before the end of time, before the Zarwane Darego Kadate, the great moment of making wonderful, Prashokariti, the third and the final last of the Saoshyans. Incidentally, our scriptures tell us that there will be 3 Saoshyans after Prophet Zarathustra. The last of the Saoshyans, known as Astavat Areta, one who embodies righteousness, will arise. And he will consummate the work of putrefying and regenerating the world. He will complete the triumph of good over evil by completely removing all evil from this world. Essentially, Ahriman will be rendered ineffective forever. And from there on, time as we know it will cease to exist. In Zoroastrianism, the concept of time is not eternal, it's linear. There was a beginning and there will be an end. All the souls of the wicked will be brought out of hell. Remember, we said that the condition of hell in Zoroastrianism is not eternal. So at this time, they will have been purified, will be forgiven at the termination of their sentence. The souls of the righteous will, of course, rise too, and there will be brought about ristakej, literally meaning the rising of the dead, the resurrection. Further, the scriptures tell us that all souls will be furnished with new bodies, tan ipasin. It is during this period that the last judgment will take place. The sun will stand still at noon metaphorically, for 30 days. And according to tradition, all the 7 creations, as well as all the souls experiencing the condition of heaven and hell, will have to pass through the allegorical river of molten metal. And passing through this river of molten metal will purge any remaining imperfection or impurity. Sounds kind of cruel, but let's see further. Iryaman, the Yazad of health and friendship, we're told, will melt all the metal in the mountains to create this river of molten metal. The souls of the righteous, when passing through this river, will feel as if they are going through a river of warm milk, while the souls of the wicked will feel pain and anguish when walking in the molten metal. This is described in the Greater Bundahishna 34.18 and 34.19. After this, the all-important resurrection, Ristakej, will occur. The Pravashis and the souls, which are already in a spiritual state, will reunite with their resurrected future bodies. All souls will be furnished with new bodies, tan epasin. There will be brought about the Ristakej, the rising of the dead, the resurrection. So now the world will enter upon a new cycle. It'll be free from all evil and misery. It'll be ever young, ever rejoicing. All souls will commence to live a life of ineffable bliss and glory. And then this is recited in the Jamia Diyas. Then he, meaning the Socian, shall restore the world which will never grow old, never die, never decaying, and never rotting, ever living and ever increasing, and master over its own wish. When the dead will rise, when life and immortality will come, and the world will be restored at Aura Mazda's wish. Jamia Diyas 89. So to every soul is promised a vision of the supreme state of heavenly bliss at the end of the present cycle of time, Zarwane Darego Kadat. The concept of frashokeriti, which means renovation, to make fresh, the making wonderful. So Prophet Ashur Zarathustra was a very positive and practical teacher. He laid great stress on the present, which is real and which eventually makes the future. And what happens after that. So his teachings show us the ethical rules of conduct by which today and in this life we can further and renovate life. And ultimately, if everyone keeps doing that in the future generations, they will bring about the Frashem Karanam home or Frashokeriti. Now, our life is similar to a long journey, isn't it? Who knows when the death will interrupt our journey? And shouldn't we be planning for this journey? But do we? We are so lost in our day-to-day world of excitement and sensation that we become the willing deaf to these divine calls of our Fravashi that tries to awaken us. But in our busy life, we don't have time for it. We conveniently forget that we are going to pass away, die, and then what? We have not prepared for this long spiritual journey. So let us shed away the useless baggage of vice and desires. Let us collect only the real wealth of goodness that will stay with us. Let us be mindful to accumulate that the only foreign exchange that is allowed to go with us to the next spiritual life is the good that we do in this life. So we have traced the Zoroastrian concept of future life by examining the scriptures and describing the concepts of death, judgment, Chinvat Bridge, heaven, hell, Amistagan, Frashokeriti, and Ristakes. We have reviewed the Zarathustri formula of success, so we know how to apply it in our daily life and inspire and should inspire us to lead this good life. We need to make sure that we lead our life of self-sacrifice and charity so that we accumulate the right kind of foreign exchange that we can take with us when we pass on. And lastly, if these ideas are properly understood and practiced in all our daily life, it has the power to inspire us and the entire humanity towards the goal of spiritual progress and everlasting bliss. And with that, I want to end today's discussion and start discussing some of your questions, or concerns, or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayomarsh. Hello, Arda. Want to say something? I have set it to have the option to unmute yourselves. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and talk. I see a question out here from Farida Bisania. Is it possible that Frashokeriti refers to not just one point and time when all humanity is liberated, but also each soul reaches Frashokeriti as and when they are ready?
Rita, a very good question. We can individually rationalize anything we want, but what I've presented is what is documented in our scriptures. Nowhere it implies, in fact, it specifically says that this will occur at one given time in the future. So I hope that answers your question.
Any other questions? Please go ahead. You can unmute yourselves and talk. Go ahead, Mariar.
First of all, Kayomarsh, it is refreshing to find someone who knows what he's talking about and makes sense. So thank you. On the question of Frashokeriti, there were many things that you said were right. The most important thing that I got and is correct is that many of these things are symbolic, they're allegorical, they are metaphors, as you said, poetic language. So all these have to be understood in the proper context and not to be taken literally. You have to see an underlying meaning. For example, this Frashokeriti issue that someone raised, that is an ongoing process. We have to perfect ourselves and the world in this life. And that's way we reach Frashokeriti. Another thing you said was, what was I going to say? The Chinvat Bridge, for example, that's an allegorical bridge, as you correctly put it. But the Chinvat Bridge is really on this earth. It's a path to either good or bad or evil. So if we live a good life, we will have passed the Chinvat Bridge into a better place. For example, in the Hadoknas that you mentioned, Hadoknas actually talks about 4 grades of heaven and 4 grades of hell. It says Humatta, Hukta, Huvarashta, and then Garodemana or Garodhaman. Same way with hell, it's Dusmatta, Dujukta, Dujuvarashta, and then I forget the exact term, something Asha, not Asha, but Atha something, pardon me, I forget the exact terminology. So what it means is that to reach heaven, to reach that perfect state of bliss, that Garodhaman, Garodemana, you have to have lived a life of good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And the good thoughts, good words, good deeds is very improperly understood by the vast majority of our community. It is not about thinking just good thoughts. Oh, I think Putin should end the war. Oh, that's a good thought. Good words. Oh, Kayomarsh, you're a wonderful guy. Those are good words. Oh, if I help an old lady cross the street, that's a good deed. But that's not what Zarathustra is talking about. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds must be geared towards making ourselves perfect and the world perfect. Frashokerati. I mean, there are a lot of good points you made, and I wish I had written them down. But again, excellent talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria.
Hey, Kayomarsh.
Haji.
So in Christian theology, there is a big debate about whether there is spiritual resurrection with the spirit body in heaven, or a material resurrection with a restored human body. Most people believe in the latter. So what is your thought on that for us?
I think from what I know of Christianity, I have not studied the entire Christian theology, but just enough to compare and see what they have borrowed from our theology. In order to justify or to support their theory of believing in Christ as the only salvation measure, the latter is emphasized. I really don't know as to if you really dig in deeper, whether the former would be also mentioned. But it's more obvious that by showing that Christ resurrected on the 4th day, it kind of behooves people to then obey the line that, okay, you can live your life, ask for forgiveness from Christ, and then all your sins will be forgotten.
Kayomarsh Mehta.
Ada, if you don't mind, Maruk's hand was up before mine.
I apologize. Okay, whoever wants to go first, please go ahead.
Maruk, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Firdaus. Kayomarsh, thank you. I think this was the first time that I heard something so refreshing and so enlightening. To me, I've always believed heaven and hell is right here on earth. And I think you just proved that. You just told us how to live our life right here, right now. And that's going to give us eternal bliss. I just wanted to thank you. And the other thing that you said, which really resonated with me, was a circle of life that you talked about. It keeps going. Life continues on. We may not have an idea of who we are going to come as or what or whatever, but you know your soul is everlasting. And the goodness that you do right now is just going to give you eternal bliss. So when the day comes, when we pass on, we go with happiness and peace, knowing that we've done the best in this world. And thank you, Kayomarsh, very, very much. I'm truly grateful. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Okay, if it's all right, I'll go next.
Ajit.
I have quite a few questions, but I don't want to take up so much time, so I'll stick to two. My first one, Kayomarsh, is I understand and agree with the concept that in Zoroastrian theology, there is no eternal damnation. That is contrary to the philosophy of Rashokerit. Because if evil is supposed to go away from every place at one time, how can there be eternal damnation? Because then the existence of evil is there forever. So I think this problem I have in my head is to then try to understand the Pahlavi texts where they talk about Margazan Guna. Margazan Guna means a guna there is no way you can get out of it. So if you have a Margazan Guna and you are going to eternal damnation, how are you ever going to get into Frashokera? So one question. I'll ask the next one later, or do you want me to ask both the questions together?
You know, just let's take one at a time.
Sure.
See what we can do. The very good question, and it reminds me of the words of Dasturji Minocharamji, that as you will read and study our scriptures, there'll be a lot of things, questions that'll arise. And he had kind of drilled it into our head. Incidentally, we had several lectures. We were fortunate enough to have him several times in Chicago, 80 some individual lessons. And he stressed that whenever there is something in the Pahlavi scriptures that conflicts, or not even conflict, but is inconsistent with the Avesta literature, then Avesta literature should take a sort of overriding place. So I would say that the Pahlavi scriptures, and just as Maria also stressed, there is a lot of misunderstanding that's caused by literalizing the allegorical concepts of the Avestan literature. So I would say that whatever you mentioned about the Margarzan doesn't stand any strength in light of the fact that the Avestan literature tells us that there will be no evil left, period. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. The second one I have is the concept of reward. Most people understand, and many religious understanding, Pahlavi texts are full of it, is that there is a question of reward. Good reward for good things done, bad reward for bad things done, etc. And this is the so-called principle of action, reaction, etc., etc. But I thought that Zarathustra's understanding of his theology, again, his doctrine, is not reward-based. Like you can't think that I do something good, so I have to get something good, etc. I mean, you can look at Hashem Bahu, simple prayer, where it says righteousness is the best, and you have to be righteous because for the sake of righteousness, not because of there is any reward. So I tried to study this issue and came across a very interesting paragraph about this issue in terms of what happens in after life and all. And I came across this paragraph where the last part of the paragraph says Chinvato fra fra peretum. So I could not understand what is this fra fra in this situation. So I researched more. I asked Dr. Ramyar, I asked Dr. Bhajan and others, and they gave me a very good understanding that it is from the 10th stanza of Yasna 46.10, which is Gatha Ushtavaiti, which starts with Ye Moi Nagena, Vamasda Ahura, Rayat Angeush, etc. And in the last line, Pro Taish Vispais Chinvato Frafra Peritum. So the translation that I got, which now suddenly makes sense to me, is this is Zarathustra speaking to Ahura Mazda. Whoever, O Ahura Mazda, man or woman, shall give me the best gifts of life, which you have made known. Whoever is righteous for the sake of righteousness and wields the power through good mind, I shall lead them towards adoring you. I shall help all of them forth to cross the Chinvat Bridge. What is your take on this issue of reward?
Okay, to me, we reward or punish ourselves, as I explained. There is no, the concept of justice is purely very straightforward. No amount of repentance, nothing can sway the justice. The sequences that we weave in our life result in the consequences that our soul will either get rewarded by itself or punished by itself. No other entity, God does not interfere. It is us and us only who will determine this way of either we reward ourselves or we punish ourselves.
I understand that part very clearly from the Gathic perspective. Then what about the Bundesh and Ardhavirafnama? They're all going in the direction of good reward for good work and bad reward for bad. How do we reconcile Pahlavi text understanding with the Gathic doctrine?
Well, the Gathic doctrine always takes precedence over any other.
Okay, so that means there is really no point in discussing the Pali literature because most of the stuff that it contradicts the Katha will take precedence.
Yes, yes.
Okay, understood.
And a lot of the Pahlavi literatures are not even very coherent.
Great.
As you know, yes.
Yeah, understand. Thank you.
Sure. Yes, Mayor.
Hi.
Gita was there before. Gita was there before. Gita?
Sorry. Yeah, Gita was before me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Gita,
I'm sorry.
please go ahead.
Doesn't matter. I thank you so much for this. Allow me to go ahead of you. It's been pleasure to be here and learn from all my teachers. Thank you so much. I would like to talk about hell and heaven, which I'm in every day. One day I'm in hell and the next day I'm in heaven. When my kids say, "Oh, Mom, I'm doing so good and everything's so I'm in heaven." And when they call me like everything is so bad, my grade, my life, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm in hell." So my kids have a big effect on me, how I go to hell and heaven, how I'm experiencing life. So my question to you is that if the hell is a place that I don't want to be, nope, I don't want to be. And heaven is a place that I want to be, and I don't want to live. So want and don't want is hell and heaven, obviously. And if that want and don't want is hell and heaven, question is, what is the purpose of hell and heaven? Thank you.
Gita, first of all, the conditions of heaven and hell, remember, we said that they are conditions. They are not places. So these are conditions. They are also the conditions that our soul will experience, either while we are living or after we pass from this life. So the purpose is that if we want to lead and make sure that our soul stays in a perpetual condition of bliss, of happiness, peacefulness, etc., then we need to follow the teachings of our religion. We need to follow the religion to the best we can, live the life for service of others, develop a good mind, all the concepts of our religion. And if we start putting them into practice, then we guarantee ourselves that our soul will continue to experience the condition that we desire. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it's not a stage of mind, I want heaven and I want hell. It's actually the consequences of my actions. Thank you. Excellent answer.
You're welcome.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent.
Hi, Kayomarsh, thank you very much. It was a beautiful discussion. And I'm not saying it just to say for good words like Maria has mentioned, I really mean it. And also congratulations to NAMC for bringing up such lovely things on the Zoom. I really appreciate it. Anyway, I have a couple of questions. Maybe I did not understand some of them properly. In one of the slides, you had mentioned something about the hell concept is a physical torture. I don't remember exactly which slide was it, but my question is the soul, we don't have any physical form. So how can we be a physical torture?
Very good observation. Like I said before, a lot of these, and even Maria mentioned it, that the concepts of our religion described in the Gathas and some of the Avesta scriptures are very allegorical. And when the later scriptures were written, they somehow made it concrete, made it very obvious to visualize. And in that process, they describe them as such, as torturing. Because like you said, if the soul is in a spiritual state, how can it be tortured? It can only be tortured by its own thoughts.
Exactly, yeah.
By its repentance. When it sees a flashback of how it has lived its life, it can keep seeing that over and over and repent that maybe I shouldn't have done this. And when the soul repents enough, then it thereby in that process, it cleans itself.
Thank you. And the second one is that you said that the souls will be furnished with new bodies for resurrection. And would that not consider as reincarnation?
No, because reincarnation technically means a life coming back on this earth.
Yeah. But if we are getting, if whoever it is furnishing the new bodies, that means that same soul is coming into the world again with another body.
No, the theory is that at that point, the time will end. It's a very deep concept that we have to look into. There will be no more deaths after this time. This new body will live forever, immortal.
So would that be like the world overpopulated if all the souls that are in the spirit world right now at the end of the time that they want to bring it back again, wouldn't the world will be, I'm talking about our world here, wouldn't that be overpopulated? What is the idea of that?
I don't think that we have to give credit to God, our
Oh, of
Mazda.
course, absolutely.
So if it was his plan to begin with, it's just that it is being implemented.
Okay.
And there are, along the same lines, some of the Pahlavi scriptures have questioned that if somebody has, lost something lost their eyes or ears or whatever, or parts of the body, how will Ahura Mazda know what to recreate? And there is a conversation in some of the Pahlavi scriptures where Zarathustra asks Ahura Mazda, and Ahura Mazda replies to them that if I created somebody once, then I will know how to recreate them again.
Okay,
It's
thank you
always
so much.
easy to recreate.
I understand. Thank you very much. I appreciate your help.
Sure.
Hey,
Good question.
Kayomarsh, there are 2 questions in the chat. You want to read those and answer? I don't know. if you
Yeah,
have
just a
answered
minute.
those or not.
Yes.
The first one was taken care of, Ada.
Okay, second one about
Go ahead, Ada.
There was
mhm.
Jal Pantaki lectured on reincarnation. Do we have reincarnation or not? Was Erwat Pantaki incorrect? I don't think anybody is incorrect. God has given us intelligence, and we use our good mind to discern what we think is proper. In my readings and teachings, I feel that the concept of reincarnation is inconsistent with the Zoroastrian philosophy. Only the Hindus, the Jains, all the Hindu, Buddhist, Hindu-influenced religions in the world believe in reincarnation. If there is only one God, and we believe that there's only one God, then whatever happens should happen uniformly across all religions, especially in matters like the treatment of soul and afterlife. So that is one reasoning. Also, if we were to give in to the argument, and like it was mentioned last month in the discussion, that some of these concepts were originated through theosophists, and some of our priests, leading priests, were theosophists. They were probably influenced by the Hindu theory. But let's say that reincarnation is correct. And if it is correct, then I can decide that since I have so many lives to live, let me enjoy this life. Let me forget about all these good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Hell with it. I do what I want, and maybe I will make it up in my next life or next several lives. And that is not what our religion teaches us. So it's totally inconsistent with our religious theories, philosophies, teachings, etc.
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Forrest.
Kayomarsh, thank you very much for a nice talk. I would like to expand on what Mayor mentioned earlier. If we look at this logically, if all these souls who have passed away are resurrected, and we only have limited volume on this earth, or even the surface area, forget about volume here. And then if we say that if God created all this, then he will take care of the problem. But God did not create all these theories about heaven, hell, resurrection, reincarnation. All these are man-made theories and philosophies. So God is sitting up there somewhere saying that I did not create this problem. You guys created this problem. I never said that I'm going to take care of unlimited resources. So we have limited resources. So how do we logically explain that if all these millions of people or billions who have passed away before are going to survive on the same earth, or unless we have plans of creating or populating these resurrected souls on some other planet or a parallel earth somewhere? So it just raises a lot of questions.
Boris, thank you for the question. I think, let me try and answer it as I understand it, that the reincarnation concept, first of all, is the concept of reincarnation of the entire creation, not just us or the souls. And I think I mentioned it,
Right.
that the entire world, all God's creations will be recreated, plants, animals, vegetable, whatever creations that God had made. And that was the God's plan.
But the
And-
surface area of Earth is constant,
Yeah, but
unless you
have
have plans to grow Earth somehow.
Okay. So the only answer that I can give you guys who want to argue that would be that we have limited intelligence. We do not know what we do not know. And we have either we believe and we have faith in our religion and what the religion teaches us, or we can choose to quit questioning us, the religious aspects, and come up with our own digressions if we want to.
I agree, and I just want to stress what you just mentioned, that we have limited intelligence, and with limited intelligence, we are creating limited understanding of limited theories, and hence we should not be kind of judging people with their knowledge of or limited knowledge of their limited theories kind of stuff. So I think all aspects are clear possibility kind of stuff. And my second comment is, if I understand the Hinduism concept of rebirth or reincarnation correctly, it is not what you said, that I don't have to do anything because I will have another lifetime to kind of live through kind of stuff. That's not true, because in their concept also, there is this ultimate mukti or concept of moksha, which is the goal for the soul. So if I can achieve moksha in one lifetime, that is the goal. So it is not a circular cycle of time. It is rather spiral, that every rebirth that you take is taking you towards this ultimate liberation. And so if somebody can achieve moksha or union with the Paramatma, then they can finish all their cycles in one lifetime, and they don't have to come back. So they do believe in doing good things so that they can achieve this liberation of their soul in one or few lifetimes kind of stuff. So that's the comment that I wanted to make.
Yeah, for us, I never said that the Hindus believe in making fun in this life, etc. I said that if the reincarnation principle existed, then I myself would take that attitude and lead a bad life in this world, thinking that the next life I would get another chance. And all I was trying to do was just say that it is inconsistent with our philosophy. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we really want to first of all thank Kayomarsh, but also Kobat for coming up with a great idea. So thank you, Kobat, for this idea. I think it's very useful and all of us enjoy this. Kayomarsh, thanks a lot again.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Kayo.
Bye, guys.